undo under pressure. Oh, yeah, I've been wanting this forever.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. This is Brad, and I'm with my beautiful wife, Tiffany. We are the hosts of the Hustle and Flow podcast. I'm glad you're joining us this morning. Hey, man, I don't know what kind of day you had already. For us, it's about 9:30 in the morning, and we went to the gym, had a terrible workout. It was awful, hot, gross, and then I had to run after, so I felt like I took a shower before I took a shower. It was pretty bad, but we're excited this morning. We're going to be discussing the term pivot. Now, pivot is a word that's going to encompass a whole lot, but we just want to talk about pivoting this morning, whether it's life, career, or whatever it is. Good morning, Tiffany.
Good
What's
morning.
happening your way?
Just trying to get adjusted to being back in the real world after vacation. And like you said, working out, it was extra hard because being gone for 10 days and coming back. But vacation was fun. There was, I haven't made a post about vacation because you're supposed to make a post when you get back from vacation because everybody needs to know you went on vacation.
Absolutely.
And I've looked.
Flexing, baby.
Well, we don't really have any pictures. All the pictures are just at a different beach, every day. And so I've got to look through which beach pictures. But I think my favorite part of vacation was the donkeys, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked if we could adopt a donkey, and I still yet to research why. There was we did a day at Grand Turk, and there was donkeys, free roaming, free range donkeys everywhere, and did Grand Turk by golf cart.
Yeah.
It didn't take long to do the whole island, but I still need to find out. My mind is not satisfied yet until I find out why there were so many donkeys everywhere, because nobody was using the donkeys, and the donkeys were not tied up in anybody. Like, I didn't see anybody's yard that had a donkey tied up, a pet donkey. So I still need to know, why were there so many donkeys?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's called Donkey Land. Grand Turk is Donkey Land. And I have no idea. I don't know if they were shipwrecked and all the donkeys swam over and now they're just populated. But, we'd seen the wild horses in North Carolina out on Corolla Beach or whatever that is. And so when I got there, from a distance, we were on the golf cart and I said, there's some more wild horses. And you said, that's donkeys. That's not wild horses. And so anyway, it's, man, you know how it is coming back from vacation. Man, it was so fun, but then you're we didn't get home till 1:00 Sunday morning, and just trashed after flying all day and driving, and but we had a good time. Went to Miami a couple days, and
Miami's always, every time we go to Miami, I ask you is there not some kind of business we can open so I can have a second little place to live in Miami?
Well, apparently we need to open the Parmesan cheese wheel business because that's everywhere. We got to do the Parmesan cheese wheel. It was pretty good. And so anyway, had a great time.
Yeah.
Glad to be back. We were concerned. Our oldest daughter's pregnant and she was due any time. And we said, look, do not have this baby while we're gone. And this is no joke. I was praying every day. I said, God, look, show us favor. We need favor here, God. Do not let our daughter have her baby without us being here, because I know it's important for her, for you to be in the room with her as she's bringing our grandson, JB, John Bradford, into the world. So she's being induced tonight, and hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to give a little sugar to our new grandson. Yeah. So excited about that. Let's talk this morning. So we're going to jump in. We're going to talk this morning about pivot. And, this thing has been on my mind a whole lot. It's one of those things that I think people, they get stuck in their mind, is that, they call it a rut. They get in a rut, or they get into a groove, or they get into a routine, and they decide that this is their life for the rest of their life. And, there's an old Skid Row song. I'm an 80s rocker. So, I had the perm at one time, I was rocking the perm and the parachute pants. You know what I'm saying? I was just a good old redneck listening to rock and roll music. But there was a song, Skid Row, and I saw this meme about it the other day. But the song was 18 in Life. And, of course, it was more about him getting in trouble and he had to go away for 18 in Life. But I thought about that aspect of pivoting, is that sometimes in your life you get locked in, or you get trapped into something, and it just becomes your life. And so I want to talk about that this morning. When I talk about pivot, one of our favorite episodes or favorite things that we watch is what? Friends. And so what's the famous episode with Ross and Chandler? And I think it's Rachel. What are they doing? Remember?
The couch.
The couch.
Yeah.
The couch. So what happens? Come on, tell me about it.
He starts, and when it's not working, he starts hollering, pivot. Yeah.
Pivot. And then finally Chandler just hollers, shut up. And so they're trying to take this couch up the stairs and trying to work it around a corner, and it's not working. And so when I think about that, I always think about that. We actually went to New York, I guess was it last year when we went and did the Friends experience? Yeah. And you actually got to hold the couch on the stairs, the pivot experience. And it was just stupid, just something fun. Of course, they got to have a picture, and I hate pictures. But anyway, so we had a good time with that. But here's the question I got. Can you change your life? Or are you stuck where you are? That's my question to you.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you can change your life and not be stuck. Because, of course, for me, I love change. I think change is the best thing ever.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I love change. And so I know you can change and not be stuck where you are, because I've changed directions multiple times.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and not just always changing directions, but adding layers to the direction I'm going to.
Okay, explain that.
Well, I mean,
because that's another tangent or another thought that maybe we can introduce.
Because even though, I'm doing right now what I believe I'm finally in my life, I think, doing what I'm called to do and what I'm gifted to do and what I'm good at doing, I'm also adding other layers to that of other things that I may be gifted to do and called to do, and not just staying with that one thing, that one dimension.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So multidimensional.
Yes.
It may be even in the calling or whatever it is that you feel like you found is multidimensional and multi-layered. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's it. Some people really don't think they can change their life. They feel stuck. And I run into people like that all the time, man. I'm just stuck where I'm at, And I posted this not too long ago. And it's something along these lines. If you don't like where you're at, then you have to change.
Yeah.
And it's real simple. You've got to change something you're doing. If you don't like where you are, you've got to wake up tomorrow and do something different tomorrow than you did today. If you don't, your life will not be any different tomorrow night than it is today. And so you've got to have what I called last night, we were talking, you got to have a pivot moment, or you got to have a pivot year or a pivot season. There's got to be something you're doing to move in a different direction. And so you don't have to stay stuck. And I wrote this down, that it's called a life, not a life sentence.
Yeah.
God, the Word of God said that He come to give you life, but not only life, but life more abundantly. And I think that sometimes we get stuck in life, and we don't ever walk into an abundant life. Yeah. And I'm not talking about God's going to drop a new BMW into your house tomorrow. He's not going to move you into a $50 million mansion. He might. If He does, great. Invite me over. We're going to kick it. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is, when you get into life, there's more than just that one thing that you can see. And here's what I've learned. I'm 52. I have learned that life is a long, winding road. It's a long, winding road, and sometimes you'll go through patches. You can't see over the hill. That's one thing I hate. I hate not being able to see over the hill, because I don't know what's coming on the other side. My mother, God love her. She's the most dramatic person. I'm telling you, she should have won an Emmy a long time ago. I love her, but it's the worst of the worst or the best of the best. And I talked to her, and she said, you're not going to believe the cops pulled up in our driveway the other day. And listen, they live in the country. The cops pull up in your driveway, you take notice. So there was a car pulled up in the driveway, 2 cops pulled in behind them. And so she proceeded to tell me that there was a 100-mile-per-hour chase.
Oh, wow.
Through our little bitty town that I grew up in on a highway, and they turned off on their road, and the 2 hills getting to my mother's. Yeah. They were jumping those hills.
That's crazy.
And so when I thought about that, that's one of those things I can't see over a hill, so I don't know what's coming sometimes. And I think that when you don't know where the next turn is, or you don't know what's over the next hill, sometimes you're apprehensive, and you don't want to make a change because it's a little bit scary. And so I think about that. So let's just jump in. let's move. How can you pivot your life? Let's talk about how you start, maybe even what that looks like.
I think you have to take an inventory of where you're at and ask yourself some of those questions. You know, am I being fulfilled right now where I'm at? And it was really crazy because I knew we were talking about this today, and I showed you my devotional this morning.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And it was, I'm doing a 365 day, like I do several of them on my Bible app. And one of them is Rick Warren that I'm doing 365. And today was actually more about your job, which we won't be talking about just your job, but he was saying that basically his words were, you're wasting the talents God gave you, you're wasting your abilities, you're wasting if you're not walking in that in your job or in anything else that you're called to do. If you are making couches, and that's what you resigned yourself to do is make couches. But God gave you a gifting or a calling, even for music, for art, for, helping people.
Right.
Then maybe it's time to evaluate, okay, I know I'm gifted at helping people. So am I better served in the healthcare system using those abilities, or does God want me to make couches? And there's nothing wrong if He told you to make couches, then make the couches, of course.
Right.
But I think you have to take an inventory of where you're at and say, okay, what do I know to be true about myself?
Right.
What am I good at? What am I not good at? Speaking of making couches, I went and worked at a factory
Okay. Tell them how long you worked there.
Well, I didn't work long because they come to me and they said, we love you so much, but you are not good at this. You're terrible. And if we could pay you to come and talk to us every day, we would, but you're never going to make production. You are not good at factory work. Like, girl, you got to go find something else to do. I don't know how old I was, 18, 19.
Yeah. And
I knew I wasn't good at it. And they knew, of course, I wasn't good at it because I didn't make production. I don't know anything about, my career in factory work ended there because when somebody tells you not only like, hey, we're going to lay you off, but hey, don't ever come back, you're not good at this, then I was that lesson learned. But I think you have to take an inventory of where you're at and say, okay, like, what am I good at? And am I using that? I think that's a first step. And am I happy?
Right.
I know that like we talk sometimes about, happiness, you don't have to be happy and we're not, but in this, what we're talking about today, yeah, I do think, because I think when you're using what you've been given, you can be happy.
I think so too. And I get that life is not always about riding the wave of happiness. It's just not. However, I will say this. It's okay to be happy. And it's okay to be happy with what you do. It's okay to enjoy your work. It's okay to enjoy whatever your calling is. The Bible says that the calling and giftings of God are without repentance. That means, and here's what I've seen. You've seen it before too, is that whatever your gifting is, wherever you take that gifting, it works. Okay? If you have an oratorical gift, which means if you're really good at speaking and you have the ability of persuasion, and maybe I'm just using this as an example, okay? Nothing concrete, but maybe you were designed to be a preacher, okay? You can also take that gift if you don't want to use it in the church, and I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying if you don't, you can take it into a courtroom, and guess what? That gift still works.
Yeah.
Okay. But I go back to you to say this is that you do have to find what you love and what you're passionate about. You do have to find what you're passionate about. And everybody is passionate about something. There's something that just defines who you are. I think I asked you, I don't even remember if we really got into it, but what makes you tick? What's your thing? And everybody's got to discover that. You have to identify and take an inventory of where you are, what you're passionate about, and you got to identify what you really want.
Yeah.
I have seen this so many times. Men and women, the older they get, they just waffle like a fish out of water. They don't know what they want anymore, especially dudes, man. Dudes go through like midlife. I call it midwife crisis. They go through midlife crisis, and they get tattoos. They cut. I got tattoos. I'm making a joke. They get tattoos. They start getting I don't know. They do stupid stuff because men want to be challenged, and you and I have talked about that. Women, I can't identify with a woman because I'm not one. But men need to be challenged. And the older I get, the more challenged I need to be. That's why I do dumb stuff. That's why I need to have dumb stuff in my life. But also finding a passion and identifying what I really want. And that's the hardest thing sometimes. What do you want?
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies, and I'm a sap, man. I'm a romantic movie guy. Like, most people look at me and think you probably going to watch documentaries all the time about Goggins. I love Goggins, but I'm going to be honest with you. I love some Sweet Home Alabama. You can kiss me anytime you want. I love The Notebook. Man, The Notebook gets me all up in my feels when he goes and lays in that bed and tells her the story of their life. I'm like, he gets me chilly right now. You know what I'm saying? And I think about that scene, though, where she'd been gone for a long time and she comes back and Noah's built a house. And she stays with him a few days, and then she's got to leave. She's got to go back to her fiance, and they're out there and they're arguing. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I don't know. And that's the whole point sometimes, is that we have to really identify what do we want, because we've got to find that. And when you find that, sometimes you can make a pivot. You can have a change. So what else do you need to do?
You know, I think when you do start trying to take an inventory of some of these things, then you can't, I don't think you can, think it to death, obviously.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But then, you can't get caught up in the past of, well, I had to make couches. I've had to make couches all my life. I have never had a choice, because you do have a choice, and it's not too late to have a choice. You can do what you want to do. You can explore the things that you want to do.
Yeah, you can. So you said it. It's never too late to make a change.
Right.
Okay. Let's talk about a couple of people. Just off the top of your head. We were talking to somebody last night. You want to talk a good friend of ours. Yeah.
So it's when we were talking about pivoting, just different people. We were talking about people that we don't know that are famous that made pivots. But locally, the first person that came to mind was Dean Webb. Mm-hmm. Dean made a huge pivot in his life. If you are from this area, you've heard of Midnight Pottery.
Right.
But before Midnight Pottery, you may not have known who Dean Webb was, and that Dean Webb, what bank he worked at and what his job there was. But Dean Webb made a pivot in his life. He was, I remember Dean because I was actually a waitress and worked at a restaurant that served lunches. And I remember Dean coming in with his banker friends in his suit and all dressed up. And then Dean made a huge pivot in his life and decided he was going to do pottery.
Yeah.
And opened Midnight Pottery. If I remember right, it used to be out off the highway there.
It was out in Auburn. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then, then I don't know if his next location, I think it was his final location, was there, on Gloucester by Blue Canoe. Mm-hmm. And built such a thriving business, completely different from banking, because the two have, I don't think, hardly have anything in common. But I'm sure that had to be scary. It may have been scary to his family. I don't know, for him to come home and say, "Hey guys, this corporate job that I have, where I go to work in a suit every day, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to grow a really long beard and I'm going to make pottery now. That's what we're going to do." I mean,
I respect it, Dean. I respect it, man.
I've loved every time I've been around his wife, but I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall too, to like when he said, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is it."
See, I've known his wife for a while. Christy, I've known her for a while because we all, she's a little bit older than I was and went to school, but I've known her, so I can imagine how that went. But I've always respected that.
Yeah.
And we got to know Dean because we'd all go hang out, like not together, but we'd see him at places and talk to him, and so that was a huge pivot. And it was funny because, like you said, when he talked to his family, it brought back a memory to us. Yeah. 2006, we've had several pivot moments in our life, but one of them specifically was I was selling for Cisco Foods, and you had started doing real estate, and I got my license. So we just said, "Hey, we're going to do this full time," and so we set our kids down. Our kids were, I don't know, they were young, and we set them around the table and said, "Hey, we're going to Dad's going to quit his job, and we're going to go sell real estate full time." And you remember what one of the kids said?
Yeah, I think it was our son.
Our son. What did he say?
we gonna be poor now?
Are we going to be poor again?
We're gonna be poor again. Okay. Yeah.
And of course, my answer was no. And I'm thinking, I don't know. You know, I mean, I have no idea. This is a pivot moment here.
Maybe not.
Maybe,
Don't know.
I don't know. But you know, here's the thing. When it comes to pivoting, you absolutely can overanalyze the heck out of stuff.
Yeah.
One of us in our relationship is an overanalyzer and gets paralyzed because they have to have the perfect time to do things and the perfect storm and situation. And the other one's like, hey, let's go do it. And I'm not going to say who that is, but it's Tiffany. And so you can't overanalyze always. Yeah. Sometimes you've got to pivot when the pivot is there, right? The other thing I think is that you can't make excuses. You know, I think in our day and time, because we were just talking about somebody that had just made some excuses on our way here. And in this day and time, it is so easy to make an excuse. I can't do it. I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I can't. And the thing that I hate, I've read this lately a whole bunch, is that I don't have a choice. Well, you do have a choice. Now, I understand everybody's, you want to come at me, great, come on. But for the most part, you have a choice. And it may not be what happens to you, but it's how you respond. You have a choice. And so excuses is one of those things. You can't pivot if you make excuses all the time.
Yeah.
You absolutely can't. The other thing is you got to broaden your skill set. Now, what does that look like for you? Like we were talking the other day. For you, what does that look like? You need to broaden your skill set. How do you do that? What do you need to do just for somebody like you?
Well, for somebody like me, I don't know. But I mean, I think I talking about conversations, I was talking to someone who was applying for a job and they weren't sure if they're going to get it or not because they didn't know all the things they needed to know. And I said, okay, well, if you don't get it this time, then you know from the questions they're asking you that you didn't feel like you knew what all you got to go learn so that when an opening comes up again, you've learned those things, those systems and those programs. And so if there's something that you want to do, there's something you want to pivot, then, you know, it's time to get on YouTube, look at classes somewhere. You know, what is it that you're going to need to know? Because now you said it's easy to make excuses, but it's also kind of ridiculous to make excuses in this day and age because there is knowledge everywhere about whatever it is you want, that you want to know. I'm not ashamed to admit that caramel cake is my nemesis. It is very hard for me to get the icing right. But, there is information out there now. Used to 15 years ago, we had all recipes. There was nobody as much cooking all this stuff everywhere for us to watch every step. So I watch TikToks, I watch YouTube, I do everything because you know me, when it comes to desserts, I don't want it to be good. I want it to be perfect. I want it to be the best. And so I'm in search of whatever it is, I've got to tweak to make my recipe perfect. But I have no excuse for anything cooking wise if I want to take my knowledge up a level. If you want to learn a language so that you can apply for a job that requires you to be bilingual, there's just no excuses for so much of this now if you want to pivot and do something else in your life.
Absolutely.
Classes, classes are offered now at night and on Saturdays for programs. People apply to work for me that are in a Saturday program for certain things. There's just, it's honestly to me a little harder to make an excuse.
It is, and that's good because there is zero really excuse to not be able to learn new skills. And I was thinking about, we were thinking about being bilingual, and that's one of the things that I've tried before, and probably, to be honest with you, wasn't very diligent. I learned a few things. So, you can get on Babbel, and I know that's conversational learning, but you can get on there for $66 for the year. And but I can't spend $66 to learn a new language.
But if you can't, then there's a guy on TikTok, and every day he teaches you a word. He's Hispanic.
No, wait, is that the parody guy?
No, it's
okay. It's not
there's a guy I follow. He's Hispanic, and every day he teaches you a word, and he shows you what that word is. You get a visual, you hear it. He says, so it's free.
Yeah, but again, I go back to I don't want to spend $66, but we'll go spend $50 to eat. Yeah. And it really it's an excuse of learning a new skill, and I think that matters. The other thing is you got to change your bubble of friends. I can just tell you right now, if you're not advancing and you're not going the places you want to go, there's a good chance you need to look around and say, who am I being influenced by? Who is in my circle? And you might need to change your circle. Now, I know that's hard because if you've been homies for life, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've been friends with people for a long time, but if they're not really, you know, what is it? If you're hanging around 4 deadheads, you're the 5th one. And my kids hate that term deadhead, but I use it as an old man. But I'm saying you might need to change your bubble. You need to change your friends. Any other things there that just pop out to you?
Well, I mean, you know, we've talked about sometimes you have to change your routine up a little bit. If
That's right.
If you need to pivot, but you can't do that because you are in situations to where you still got to be doing whatever you're doing, then you have to change your routine up a little bit. What does that look like? That's something that comes to mind to me. You got to do things a little different. And then that's a very old, to have things you never have. You got to, what is it?
Do things you've never done.
Do things you never done. So yeah, you have to sometimes just change up that.
You may have to cut. You may have to cut Netflix off for a while, or Hulu, and just do something to learn.
Yeah.
And change. You got to change things. Now, I think that's the crux of this whole thing is when you pivot, is that you have to change something. If you want something different, you got to do something different. That's just the way it is. And I like these, and I'm going to use a couple examples here. People like, well, I'm just too old. I'm kind of just stuck here, and I'm almost at retirement. I'm almost at whatever, and I'm just going to cruise this bad boy in. And I think about some of these people that I'm going to call out. Everybody knows Betty White. Betty White, man, she is an icon. Golden Girl. She's the funny old lady. She passed away recently. But everybody loved Betty White. But did you know that Betty White didn't break in until she was 51? She made her first appearance on the Mary Tyler Moore Show at 51. So the back half of her life was bad versus the first part. Everybody knew Betty White when she passed away. Yeah. And everybody loved some Betty White. I didn't know this one. Duck and Hines cake mix. He was 55 years old.
That was a man, Duncan Hines.
Duncan Hines. I don't know. You know this. You cook. I have no idea. But Duncan Hines, he 55 years old. He didn't start with cake mix. He started with a publication called Good Eating in America. People ask him, say, hey, where's a good place to eat in America? He published a book, and he sold them for $1. But he's 55 years old. How about Ray Kroc? Everybody know Ray Kroc?
No.
Yes, you do. McDonald's.
That's his name? I always thought it would be something like Bob McDonald.
It was
like Sam Walton.
Well, Ray Kroc wasn't the founder of McDonald's. The McDonald's was in San Bernardino. The first one was in San Bernardino, California, and he met them. Ray Kroc was a milkshake maker seller. So he'd go try to sell milkshake machines. And he met the McDonald people. And so he bought his first McDonald's franchise when he was 52 years old. And the rest is history. How about Julia Child? You know Julia Child?
Yeah.
50 years old. 50 years old when she published her first cookbook. So you're still on track.
Yeah, I'm still on track.
Still on track. How about Grandma Moses? You know Grandma Moses? Famous painter. You know when she started painting? 78 years old.
Wow.
You know why she started painting? Because she had a pivot moment. Her arthritis had gotten so bad that she couldn't embroider these scenes anymore. I don't know, whatever that. She could not do that anymore. So one of her friends said, hey, why don't you paint those scenes? She became famous after that. Colonel Sanders, everybody knows KFC. 62. 62. How about Martha? How about Martha Stewart? Everybody knows Martha Stewart.
Yeah.
Did you know she was a stockbroker? And she was a model before she opened her first catering company in her 40s. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
How about Nelson Mandela? Everybody know Nelson Mandela? If you don't, you need to watch the movie. It's a really, really good movie. He spent 27 years in jail. But then he got elected, 75 years old. I'm telling you, it is never too late to make a pivot. It's never too late to have a pivot moment.
Yeah.
Because you get intertwined sometimes. Your identity gets wrapped up into what you do sometimes. And this is who I am. Men are famous for this. When a man meets another man, they say, hey, what's up? And what's the first question men ask?
What do you do?
What do you do?
Yeah.
You know why? Because they want to know, what level of respect do I need to give you? Where do you fall in the respect line? Because men get identity based on what they do, and that's just stupid. Just to be quite honest, that's stupid. Because when you fall in love with what you do, and you're passionate about what you do, and those gifts and those callings, man, they just scream out. It's not about money. It ain't about fame. It ain't about fortune. It's about walking in the very thing that you were created to do. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited about pivoting. And, I told you the other day, we were talking, look, I'm not done. I'm 52. I'm not done. Podcasting for us was a pivot.
Yeah.
Huge pivot. Because I don't mind talking. That's just kind of one of my things. But I have to pull it out of you sometimes, and it's uncomfortable for you to be behind this microphone at times. But we've pivoted. We've gotten more comfortable. These are just things that we're doing. So,
well, it's funny because, I can talk.
Yes,
but I can chase rabbits. So the hard part for me is to stay on track with whatever we're talking about today and not talk about something else. Mm-hmm. But even with this, as some people would probably think that like this is just so easy. For me, the fear in doing this was I don't like negative feedback. And I know the more you put yourself out there with things, and that's, one of the things I met with my business coach, and we've had a plan for me. And that's one of the things I said is like, the more I put myself out there, I'm afraid I've gotten tougher being in business for myself.
Right. That's right.
But I know it'll hurt my feelings sometimes if somebody just says something so mean. So for me, you talk about fears with different things. Like I wasn't necessarily, one of the things is, will anybody listen? Does anybody care what we have to say? Was just the mean people. I said, I don't want to do it because of the mean people. So with anything, I think you're going to have on your cons list, when you're making your pros and cons, you're going to have some cons. And for me, like for this, like I said, is like, mean people. But because the mean people don't bother you as much.
I care less. Like, I want to be mean back, but I've really always tried to take the high road, because trolls are going to come out of the bridge, from under the bridge. That's just what trolls do, because they're unhappy with their own life and they're just going to troll you. And the truth is that nobody really cares.
Yeah. Well, and that's, but the thing is that, yeah, nobody cares. But I can tell you that on a weekly basis, and especially about certain topics, somebody will message me that I don't even talk to often or whatever, and it always makes me like, it makes that week worth it, because you think, okay, that's why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. But if I would have listened to that, then I wouldn't have people that say like, what you said about marriage this week, we've been practicing that and it's helped us so much. Or what you said about business, like I've been stuck opening a business and I didn't know the next, like that helps so much. And so like if you don't pivot sometimes and you let those excuses and reasons and fears and all the reasons you shouldn't on the con list, you just don't, you have no idea what could be on the other side.
Absolutely. And that's a really good place to stop right there, is that, man, if you've got something in your heart, and listen, I'm not telling you to be foolish, okay? But I'm telling you, you may very well have a pivot moment coming in your life. And I'm going to say this. I don't know that they happen often. Sometimes that pivot moment moves on and you miss it. I'm not saying something don't come back around on the other side, but I'm telling you, you need to pay attention. And you need to be cognizant of a pivot moment when it comes around, because when it comes around, that's your chance, man. You jump right into it. I'm thinking about my man Michael right here. I don't know that probably when he was shooting basketball back in the day and breaking ankles that he thought, I'm going to pastor that church one day. But pivot, bang, here we are.
Yeah.
And it's blowing and it's going, it's doing great. And the testimonies coming out of this thing is awesome, because he walked into his pivot moment. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know today, as we get ready to close, I'm not sure where you are if you're listening. I'm telling you, you're not done. You may have only just began.
Yeah.
You may feel like that you're at the bottom of the ladder looking up, but I can tell you that one pivot moment in your life will change everything. that thing that God maybe put in your heart or whatever it is that you're talented or gifted or passionate about, I'm telling you, pivot. Find a way to pivot and your whole life can change. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, and I think when you do that, when you start finding those things, you just have a renewed sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And you wake up excited and not just, I've got to go do this thing that I don't like today or whatever, or I don't like my life. Like, you have a renewed sense of purpose and passion when you find those things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you so much for listening today. We love spending time with you. Hey, listen, if you're on Spotify, if you're on Apple Podcast or anything like that, we appreciate a 5-star review, maybe even some kind words there. Anything you could do would help us. We would really appreciate it. And thank you so much for that. We do want to say this. Hey, listen, Tiffany and I are putting on a marriage conference. You can find that link. I'll post it later on our page and on our personal pages, but put on a marriage conference the first week of September. And it's a good time. We had a great conference last year. We got some great people lined up. Scott Dooley and Heather Dooley. If you know Coach Dooley from East Union, he yells at everybody. He's intense, but he's a great guy. Him and his wife have been married a long time, got great stories. Tiffany and I have got a session, and we got another couple that's got a session coming. And so just would encourage you, you can look for that. If you need help in your marriage, that's a good place to pivot.
Or if you don't need help.
But
just
still
need to make it better.
Absolutely. That's it. Hey, listen, we do want to encourage you that if you find yourself not going the way you want to go, find people who are going the way you want to go and hop in there and flow with them, and you will find what you're looking for. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great morning.
Hey. Yeah, let's see how you do under pressure. Oh. Yeah, I've been wanting this forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey. Yeah, ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm Kesha. I get to the